What is going on, guys and gals? Brooklyn bound the raid scientist here with another Destiny 2 raid guide. Today, we are going to hop aboard the massive world-eating ship of Emperor Calus and face what challenges await inside the Leviathan. This is the first raid that launched in Destiny 2, and it contains 4 encounters as well as a massive maze of tunnels, hidden chests, and secrets. All in all, it is still one of the most complete, well-organized, and largest raids in the Destiny series. Today, we will walk you through the mechanics of each of the 4 encounters as well as some of the additional tips for the chests in the courtyard area called the Castellum. Look for the timestamps in the description if you want to jump to a specific encounter. Also note that the weekly order of the encounters changes, with Emperor Calus always being the final encounter. Therefore, when you actually run it, the order of the encounters might be slightly different from week to week. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. The first encounter I will cover isn't one of the main encounters of the raid, but it does award a chest with some shaders and some tokens, and it is the simplest way to make it to each of the other encounters. When you enter the Leviathan, go up the ramps and take the super sweet launchers to walk into the main courtyard area called the Castellum. This area contains 4 large doors with symbols above them. Each door opens to one of the encounters in the raid. The sun symbol leads to the royal pools, the axis symbol leads to the Gauntlet, the war beast symbol leads to the pleasure gardens, and the chalice symbol leads to the Emperor Calus fight. The goal of this area is to unlock the door to the encounter that you are on. For example, if you just loaded into the Leviathan raid and the Royal Pools encounter is the first one for the week, then you will need to unlock the Sun door first. To unlock the doors, split your team up into 2 groups of 3. 3 players will stay and defend the door you are trying to unlock, while 3 other players will go fetch the keys. The defending players will simply keep waves of Cabal adds away from the plate, because as the runners go fetch the keys, they will bring them back and place them here. If the orange bar adds get too close to the plate, they will steal the keys, so you need to keep mowing the adds down. Also note that every 30 seconds or so, a scion will spawn in a bubble near the door you are defending. While it is up, it will make the orange bar adds that steal the keys immune, so you need to find the scion and kill them quickly. You can only kill them by going inside their bubble and meleeing them. While all of this is going on, the runner team will head off to the other 3 doors to retrieve the keys. To do this, go to the door designated by the active symbol shown on the defending plate. Clear all of the adds at that door, and then a Centurion mini-boss will spawn there. Once he is dead, you will be able to pick up the key from that plate and bring it back to the plate that you are defending. Then, a new symbol will appear on the designated area and a new location of the next key. You'll eventually go to all 3 doors and achieve 3 keys to ultimately unlock the one you are defending. A chest will appear behind it, and you can finally advance to the encounter. As I mentioned, there is a series of tunnels under the Leviathan that you can take to get to the encounters as well, and in a sense, just skip this Castellum part. However, learning your way through them can take a while, so if you're new to the Leviathan, I recommend just doing the Castellum part to get to each encounter, as it is relatively easy to do. The first full encounter I'm going to cover is the Pleasure Gardens, where you must destroy the royal war beast Calus has waiting for you. To prepare for this encounter, you'll want to pre-assign some things. First, 2 players need to be responsible for managing the seeds that shoot the flowers. The remaining 4 players will be responsible for dropping down, grabbing the orbs, and navigating through the gardens. I'll cover how to do each role in a moment. You'll also want to pre-assign each player a specific dog that they are going to be responsible for killing. There are 8 total flowers in normal mode, but only 6 dogs. They will be at the following locations: R1, R2, R3, and then L1, trees, and L3. The flowers located at L2 and cave will not have a dog to kill on normal mode, but they will on prestige. The diagram shown on screen will give you a good example of where each dog and where each flower is. Weapon-wise, I recommend a heavy-hitting weapon like a sword, grenade launcher, or linear fusion rifle. Super-wise, the same thing. Golden Gun, Chaos Reach, Nova Bomb, etc. are all great for doing damage to the dogs relatively quickly. Now, if you are going to be navigating the gardens, it's best to get very familiar with the room and where things are located. Make sure you can find any of the 8 flowers located on the map relatively easy. When the encounter begins, a drop-down door will open up for the 4 garden players to drop down and pick up the 4 orbs. Meanwhile, the 2 seed players will need to stay up top, out of sight of the war beasts. This entire encounter is about staying out of sight and not getting detected. 1 seed player will cover the left 4 flowers, and 1 seed player will cover the right 4 flowers. 1 flower on each side will be glowing, and that is the flower that the 4 garden players below need to make their way to. When they arrive at the flower, the seed player will jump into one of the pillars of light and use the seed to shoot the flower. Doing so will pollinate the 4 players below with buff stacks. If you have all 4 players at the seed when this happens, you will get times 12 of the buff. The goal is to get as many stacks as possible, as the more stacks you have, the more damage you can do to the dogs. When a seed player buffs a flower, a beast handler Centurion will spawn out of one of the doors up top and then attempt to jump down in the garden. It is the seed player's responsibility to also take them out by shooting the seed using the Pillar of Light as a weapon. The 4 players in the garden then will make their way to the next glowing flower, and continue this process until all the dogs either grow restless and attack, or someone is spotted. The dogs in the garden follow the same pathing when they're prowling, so it might take some practice to learn all the safest routes to get to each flower. But once you get the pathing down, it's relatively easy. Note that the dog's line of sight is forward, so you can get relatively close to them if you're behind them. But if they turn around or they face you, they can spot you from much further away. Either way, as soon as the beasts are on attack, everyone will need to sprint to the dog they were assigned and damage them as much as possible. Smaller dogs will also spawn and attack you as well, so be careful. You get about 20 seconds or so to damage your dog before all of the little ones will overrun you, and ultimately you will die. So, to avoid this, you can run back to the middle and drop down below into the safe room. Any player that doesn't get back to the safe room in the 20 to 30 second timer will die. After the safe room door closes, all of the dogs will reset and you can start the process over again, collecting more buffs and killing the remaining dogs. Note that if you kill any of the dogs, the time you have to sneak around in the garden becomes less. So my recommendation would be to not kill any of the dogs until they are all very low health, and then do one final round where you kill all 6 at once. You can use the safe room a total of 3 times before it becomes unavailable. So keep this in mind if someone gets spotted early, or if you don't get all the dogs killed in the first few rounds. Once they are all dead, you'll be rewarded a chest. A few final notes about this encounter. First, the flowers have a short activation period, meaning that once a player gets near a glowing flower, you only have about 5 seconds or so to shoot it before it becomes unusable. So make sure everyone follows close and you arrive at all the flowers together. Second, the players up top with the seeds can also be spotted by the dogs, so do your best to stay out of line of sight and not fall down or get spotted. Finally, there is a challenge mode for this encounter that rotates every 4 weeks. If you're trying to get the challenge mode done, then you can only use 1 flower on each side, aka 1 flower on the left and 1 flower on the right, for a total of times 24 stacks before damaging the dogs. The easiest way to do this is just do multiple rounds where you grab 24 stacks from the 2 flowers on each side, and then damage the dogs a little bit, go to the safe room, and repeat. If done correctly, you'll be rewarded 2 chests after completing. To leave the pleasure gardens, you can go back in the door up the stairs and head back to the Castellum to unlock the next encounter listed on your wayfinder. Or you can take the underbelly. There is a switch on the right that opens the drain, and a switch under some pots on the far left that opens to the conduit area. The next encounter I'm going to cover is the Royal Pools. In this encounter, you need to disrupt the Cabal bathing ritual by destroying the 9 lanterns in the middle room. These lanterns are made damageable by standing on plates and raising them up. As you prepare for this encounter, you'll want supers that deal damage to these lanterns. Maybe 1 warlock using a Well of Radiance or Healing Rifts, and 1 hunter using a Tether. Weapon-wise, you'll probably want 1 good shotgun or fusion rifle to kill a yellow bar enemy, and then good meta heavy weapon to damage the lanterns. Things like xenophage, grenade launchers, etc. will work great. As you enter the room, you'll notice a central area with a plate in the middle, and then 4 locations around the outer edges of the room with plates as well. You'll also notice that the ground around these plates has a dark purple ooze that will damage you if you stand in it. The goal of this encounter is to activate and stand on the 4 outer plates for a long enough time so that they raise the chains, which raises the 9 lanterns up in the middle room to damage them. Each of the 4 plates has to have the chain raised and then locked in place. You need all 4 plates to be locked for damage phase to begin. Now, you can't normally just stand on the plates because they are all located within the purple ooze that damage you. So, in order to stand on the plate, you need to have psionic protection. The only way to achieve psionic protection is to collect these dark orbs that are found on the plates. At the start, there will be 1 on all 5 plates, including the one in the middle. Once started though, the only source of protection will be at the middle plate. So you'll need to rotate. In order to do this efficiently, split your team up into 2 groups of 3. 1 group will cover the left 2 plates, and 1 group will cover the right 2 plates. Each group of 3 will take turns rotating to the middle to collect a fresh psionic protection buff, and then replacing each other on the plates. To do this, have 2 of the players jump on their respective plates on the outside, while the 3rd person activates the middle one. Then, the 3rd person will head to one of the 2 outer plates and relieve the person that is there. The person who is relieved will then run to the middle, quickly grab a fresh buff, and then head over to the other person that is still on their plate and relieve them. Then, that player who is relieved will also head to the middle, grab a fresh buff, and then head back to where the other player is. You will keep rotating in this triangular pattern until all the plates lock. Now, it is not as simple as just standing on a plate, of course, because waves of adds are going to be spawning while you stand on your plate, and you don't want to get off to shoot them, because getting off your plate will make it take longer to lock. In addition, a yellow bar ceremonial bather will spawn up out of the mist below the chain and has a fairly large amount of health. You have to kill them quickly before they jump at you and slice you up. This is where I recommend using that fusion rifle or shotgun to take them out. It's also best that, as you rotate your plates, that you work together to help take down the bathers before moving. Ultimately, if they kill anyone on their plate, it will take locking that plate much longer as it takes to get the revive. So it's best that nobody dies during the plate phase so you can get to the damage phase as fast as possible. Finally, once all 4 outer plates lock, you will hear a chime sound indicating that the lanterns in the middle are ready to be damaged. Have all 6 players head to the middle room and clear all remaining adds. Together, all jump on the middle plate at the same time and start unloading your heavy and supers into the lanterns. It's best to have a warlock drop a Well of Radiance or Healing Rift here, as well as have a hunter throw a tether on the ground to lock up any adds and give you a brief period of time where you aren't getting berated. As the lanterns shatter, move on to the remaining ones. You need to destroy all 9 to finish. If you don't get all 9 down in one phase, have everyone head back to their starting plates and repeat the same plate rotation phase as you started and damage the lanterns again. A few additional notes on this encounter. First, the psionic protection buff lasts for 50 stacks, which is about 45 to 50 seconds. So make sure as you rotate, you take the time to clear out some adds in the center with a grenade before going to the next plate. Second, since both sides will be using the same middle plate to refresh their buffs, note that the orb may disappear briefly. It'll respawn though, so just be patient. And finally, a few notes on completing the challenge mode that comes around once every 4 weeks. The challenge requires that one person always remains in the pool in the middle. There are a few ways you can do this, but the easiest way I've found is to just have one person stay in the middle and refresh their own buff, and then the 4 outer players will one at a time go to the middle, refresh their own buff, and then head back to their own starting plate. This does mean that it will take a little longer to lock the chains because as the time the players get off their plate to go refresh their buff, it will delay them locking. But ultimately, it shouldn't cause you too much extra time, and other than that, all other mechanics are exactly the same. To leave the pools and head to the next encounter, you can either go back to the entrance area or head back to the Castellum. Or you can unlock secret passages to the underbelly. The plates under the pots in the lower area of the pool's room will open the door on the side, which takes you to the aqueduct. Or you can pull the 4 levers in order shown on screen to open a panel at the top right of the room, drop down to the drain area. Any way you do it, you'll head on to the next encounter of your waypoint. The next encounter I'll cover is the Gauntlet. And while the purpose of this video is to simply explain how to complete each encounter, I do want to take a moment here to quickly just call out how awful I think this encounter is. I loathe it. Anyway, so now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's go ahead and cover what you're going to want subclass-wise. To start, you're going to want everybody on roaming supers. And in addition, you want ad-clearing weapons as well. A good heavy-hitting weapon like a shotgun or a sword or something to quickly take out Centurions is great, but there is no boss here or anything, so you don't need to set up meta DPS weapons for this encounter. You want to focus out on clearing adds and Centurions only. In addition, if you want to put on some exotic armor that increases your run speed like stompies, transversive steps, etc., but it's not really necessary, it just might help out if you're running through the Gauntlet. Another note about Gauntlet is that there are a ton of different strategies used here, many of which can simplify the encounter, make rolls a little bit easier, or however you want to do it. The most popular one is a stationary strategy where everyone is assigned their own plate and work in pairs to shoot the gates, and the same runner runs every time. While I agree that this strategy does make things easier, it doesn't prepare you to do the challenge or the prestige version of this gauntlet encounter, so why not learn how to do it the way it was really intended anyway? And that's how I'm going to explain it. The goal of this encounter is to get 9 charged orbs slammed into the middle area. You have the opportunity to get 6 orbs by successfully completing the 3 initial gauntlet rounds, and then a chance for 6 more in the final gauntlet round, for a total of 4 rounds. You'll notice that the room is a giant symmetrical circle with 4 areas designated by the 4 symbols you've seen repeating thus far throughout the raid. On the outside room is an inaccessible ring with a bunch of tic-tac-toe looking walls around each section. You want to pre-assign 3 people to be on the dog team and 3 people to be on the cup team. Each team of 3 will work together on their side for each gauntlet round to cover the 3 different roles that are needed after the waves of ads are killed. I'll cover those now. The first job is the Scion Puncher. This person's job during the gauntlet phase is to shoot the lowest of the 2 triangles, and I'll cover what this means in a minute, and then they will need to punch the Scion that spawns inside a bubble, and then rotate to the next plate. The second job is the Plate Activator. This person's job during the gauntlet phase is to shoot the higher of the 2 triangles, and again I'll cover what that means in a minute, and then to move to the next plate to the right. The plate is what activates the gates, so someone has to stand on the plate. Finally, the third job is the Runner. The Runner's job is to pick up the Psionic Charge Orb, get teleported into the gauntlet, and then call out the gates and run to the end. As they go, they will need to collect the orbs that pop up in the rings in the gates to stay alive. And once they finish jumping through all the gates, they will get teleported back inside and can run the charged orb into the middle and slam it. So, that was a little confusing. What you really need to know is that there's 3 roles, and all 3 roles are a little different. Let me explain how those roles are actually executed together. When the encounter starts, ads will spawn at all 4 areas. You can have 2 stronger players solo the axes and sun areas, while 2 players cover the dog and cup areas, or you can have 1 person float back and forth to help and designate 4 people to cover the 4 plates. Either way, kill all the ads, and then 4 centurions will spawn in all 4 areas. Dispatch them quickly, and then get ready for the first gauntlet phase. Two psionic charges will spawn at the cup area and the dog area, respectively. The person designated as the runner on each team will need to pick these up quickly, as well as within the same time as the runner on the other side. When they do, they will both get teleported into the gauntlet, and they will see a gate with 9 rings in front of them. Call out which gate you're at, dog, cup, sun, or axes, and then call out what row has the ring that is red. So if you are at the dog gate and you see one of the rings in the top row is red, you will call out dog top. Now, this call out is essential for the other 2 players in your little team that are still outside where you cleared the ads. At this point, the person designated for the plates will jump up on the first plate, and the Scion Puncher will stand on the ground in front of that plate. Both players will face the set of 3 triangles on the wall. When the runner calls out top, middle, or bottom, that tells those 2 players which of these 3 triangles not to shoot. So if the call out is top, then the middle triangle and the bottom triangle need to be shot at the same time. In order to keep this organized, you'll always have the Scion Puncher, who is standing on the ground, shoot the lowest triangle needed. And you'll have the plate person always shoot the highest triangle needed. So, In the example that the runner calls out top, that means the middle triangle and bottom triangle need to be shot. Therefore, the plate person will shoot the middle one, because that one is the highest one that is needed, and the scion puncher will shoot the bottom one. If this is done correctly, the triangles will turn green, and the gate inside will unlock for the runner. The runner should grab the orb and move towards the next gate. Then, the scion puncher will punch the scion that spawns and then turn to the right and jump over to the next gate area. And the plate person will also turn to the right and jump over to the next plate. Now, the runner will call out the next gate, top, middle, or bottom, and the two other players will repeat just as they did, shooting the appropriate triangles that were not called out. Repeat this process following the runner around to all four gates until they can escape out and run to the middle to dunk their orb. Note that while your team of 3 is doing this, the other team of 3 is doing the exact same thing starting from the opposite side. So each round, there's always going to be 2 people running, 2 people punching scions, and 2 people doing plates. Once the runners have dunked their orbs, it will trigger a new wave of adds and another round of the gauntlet. You have to repeat this 3 total times to trigger the final gauntlet round. Once you've cleared 3 rounds of the gauntlet, the psionic charges in the middle will overload and allow all 6 players to pick one up. When this happens, everyone will get teleported into the gauntlet for one final run. As you run, you'll notice that there are only 4 orbs in the gates, which keep you alive in the gauntlet. So you'll need to designate players to specifically pick them up every other gate or so everyone can make it to the end. We usually have the dog team grab the orbs on the first gate and the third gate, and the cup team grab the orbs on the second gate and the fourth gate. Remember that you need a total of 9 orbs dunked into the middle to finish this encounter. So if you successfully dunked 6 orbs on the 3 initial gauntlet phases, meaning nobody died, then you only need 3 players to get through at the end to dunk their orbs. But if you messed up any of the initial 3 phases and didn't dunk an orb due to a death or something else, then you'll need more people in the final run to survive. Once you dunk the 9th orb, the chest will spawn and you can collect your loot and move on. A few final notes about this encounter. First, the scion puncher has to punch their scion within a very short time of its spawning. If you do not punch your scion quickly, then floating projection scions will spawn up in the air and will wipe you if you don't shoot them. Second, the Gauntlet Challenge mode that rotates every 4 weeks can be completed by following this strategy I just explained. But you also have to rotate roles. For Challenge, each player can only activate each plate once. So you rotate who does the running, who does the punching, and who does the plating in each of the 3 gauntlet phases. I usually rotate in the order of punch, then plate, then run, but you can do whatever you want. Be careful if you've already done the plate roll when the plates activate that you don't get too close to it, or it could trigger and cause the challenge to fail. Completing the challenge will award a second chest when you finish. When you leave the gauntlet area, you can pull these switches to open up the underbelly, or, like all the other encounters, you can always head back to the Castellum to unlock the next encounter in your Wayfinder. The final encounter of the Leviathan, you will face Emperor Calus himself. Or something like that. Head up the long purple hallway to open the final door. To prepare for the Calus encounter, you want to separate your team out into 2 teams of 3. One team will be the Throne Room team, and one team will be the Void Room team. The 3 players that will be designated the Throne Room team want to have on roaming supers. The 3 players designated for the Void Room team want to have on DPS supers for boss damage, like Celestial Nighthawk with Golden Gun, Well of Radiance, Bubble, etc. For weapons, you'll find about 10,000 different YouTube videos of Calus being damaged by pretty much every weapon in the game. My recommendation would be to use whatever DPS weapon is the current meta for the season you're on. Things like Whisper of the Worm, Xenophage, 1000 Voices, grenade launchers, etc. will all get the job done. Those in the Void Room want to equip some kind of auto rifle or submachine gun as well, because they need to shoot a bunch of low health skulls, and they will need something rapid fire to do that. The Calus encounter has 3 phases: the initial ad clearing phase, the Void Room and Throne Room phase, and then the DPS phase. To start, all 6 players will be together as waves of ads will spawn out the doors at the top left, top right, and middle of the room. You should all group up together starting on one side and clear all of the ads from those doors first. Then rotate as a team, clearing all the remaining ads together. Watch out for the yellow bars that spawn out of each area for a total of 3 that definitely need to go down fast. Furthermore, this whole time you are clearing, Calus will shoot you with his lasers as well, so watch out. You only have a finite amount of time to clear all the ads, so make sure you move quickly. Those who will be designated in the Void Room can use their supers here, as they will get them back before the DPS phase begins. Once the time to clear ads gets low, 4 scions and bubbles will spawn on the 4 plates in the middle of the room. Do not kill these scions yet. Leave them up, and shortly after, Calus will clap his hands and teleport all 6 players into a new void area with a giant Calus head in front of you. This is where the teams will split up into Phase 2. 3 players who were previously designated to be the Throne Room team will grab the 3 black orbs that are in front of you, and jumping through them will teleport you back into the Throne Room. Make sure you designate each person to get a specific one, because only one player can grab one orb. The 3 other players will stay put, because they are the Void Room team. Now, both teams will be doing separate things at the same time here, so I'll cover each group separately. First, the Void Room. While you're in the Void Room, Calus will be inhaling all of the air in the room. So if you jump or bump into a raised part of the floor, you will get lifted up to the air and killed. You have to stay on your feet in this room at all times. The goal of this is to navigate the giant grid in front of you and get to the end. Watch for holes in the floor as well that you can also fall down. How it works is that there will be a series of barriers that prevent you from getting pulled forward. In addition, waves of scions on the ground and floating projection scions will spawn at each barricade that you need to clear quickly. The ground scions can launch their void attack at you, which propels you up in the air and will kill you, and the projection scions can explode and wipe the entire raid. In order to get the barriers to spawn, preventing you from dying, you'll need the Throne Room to kill a specific scion on one of those 4 plates. You'll notice Calus's forehead will spawn random symbols, and the 3 people in the Void Room will all see different symbols. They will need to call them out quickly and clearly so the people in the Throne Room can hear. Whichever symbol is not called out is the scion that needs to be killed in the Throne Room. If the correct scion is killed, a new barricade in the Void Room will spawn about 20 feet in front of the current one and allow you to move forward safely. Again, when moving forward, watch out for ramps and such that can launch you into the air. You will keep repeating this as you move down the Void Room towards Calus, and for each barricade there will be 3 ground scions and 2 floating projection scions. I recommend shooting the ground ones first and then focus on the floating ones. Each player will have a designated ground scion to kill. The middle player will always shoot the middle scion. The left and right players will shoot across and kill the scion on the other side. This is because, due to the environment, sometimes it's hard to see the scion on your own side. you'll always have line of sight to the one across from you. Once you've reached the final barricade, clear the scions and get ready for the skull shooting phase. All 3 players should group up tightly in a single spot and pull their auto rifles or automatic weapons out. Calus will open his mouth and start spitting these floating skull heads at you. For every single one you destroy, you will increase your stacks of force of will by 1. The more stacks you have, the more damage you will do to Calus when it becomes time for DPS. If you have something to increase your reload speed here, it will also help. Keep shooting the skulls until they are all gone. Then you can jump through the orbs that appear and get teleported back in the throne room to join the other 3 players and move on to the DPS phase. However, I do need to go back and cover what the throne room team is busy doing while the void room team is doing everything I just explained. So, when the 3 players jump through the orbs to come back to the throne room, they will start getting waves of ads spawning from the doors and in the back and the middle of the room. 1 person should stay to the left, 1 person should stay to the right, and 1 person will be responsible for punching the scions. This person will listen to the callouts the 3 players in the void room make, and then, very quickly, go punch the scion with the symbol that was not called out. For example, if the void room calls out dog, cup, sun, then they should go punch the Axis scion because that one was not called. This needs to be done quickly, because if not, the players in the void room will not get a barrier they need in time to continue, and they will get sucked forward and killed. You'll also need to repeat this 4 times. Watch out for Centurion yellow bars that will spawn every other round. Feel free to use roaming supers in here to keep the ads at bay. Your goal is to clear the entire room by the time the void room players start shooting the skulls. At this point, Calus will raise his hands in the air and the room will start to glow white. He is charging up a super attack that will wipe the entire raid unless the throne room players destroy his white overshield in time. Note that as soon as the white overshield on Calus is broken, he will stop his attack. But the skulls in the void room will also stop spawning as well. The goal here is to allow Calus to keep his hands up for a little bit of time to increase the number of skulls the void room players can shoot, and then break his overshield right before he wipes the raid. Once you break him, the void team will take the orbs to teleport back to the throne room. Now, all 6 players will be together, and the 3rd and final DPS phase will begin. Group up at the sun plate on the top right, and jump on the plate together to activate it and start unloading your heavy and supers on Calus. Note that you can actually start any plate you want. We just typically start on sun, because you can use 4 plates to damage him. After you've damaged him for a short time, he will launch an attack at you on the plate and you will need to jump off quickly. At this point, you'll rotate to the next plate, jump on it, and start damaging him again. Keep repeating this until you've either killed him or you've used up all 4 plates and he becomes immune. Note that his crit spot starts on his head, and then it changes to his chest once it explodes. If you have used all 4 plates and he is still alive, you will need to repeat all 3 phases again to finish him off. He'll add a few surprises in your second round, like removing some of the floor in the void room and upping his attack in the throne room to be a little bit more dangerous. When his health is finally depleted, you'll finish him off during his final stand. He'll raise his hands up again, and you'll need to take down his white overshield to finally finish him. One final note about the Calus encounter is in regards to the challenge mode that rotates every 4 weeks. The challenge mode for Calus is pretty straightforward. You have to activate all 4 plates in the throne room during DPS phase at the same time before damaging Calus. This means instead of all 6 players starting on one plate and then rotating to each of the plates together, you designate specific people to activate each plate at the same time and damage him from your own plate. Likely, you will not be able to do enough damage and you'll have to repeat this, which means it is a little bit harder because you may have to do 2 phases. Ultimately, make sure when you jump on the plates, you all wait about a second for them to all activate and light up before you start shooting him. If at any point he gets damaged before any of the plates get activated, it will cause the challenge to fail. Like I said, you may have to repeat DPS phase a couple of times to do this because your time is definitely cut down, but ultimately, once you finish it off, you'll get a second chest and a second set of loot. All the other mechanics for the fight are exactly the same. Either way, an elevator will take you down below where your chest or chests are waiting, as well as a surprise to learn that you didn't just kill the real Calus. You just killed a replicate, and you'll see dozens and dozens more below with the chest. Anyway, congratulations, you've just completed the Leviathan. Best of luck in getting this done, Guardians. Please, please, please drop me a like, comment, or hit that subscribe button if you learned something or if you just enjoyed the video. We are getting closer to our sub goal. I really appreciate all the support. Until next time, Guardians, best of luck.